Welcome to the CEO Project Podcast, where Jim Schlexer, author of the best-selling book, Great CEOs Are Lazy, and the founder of the CEO Project, provides ideas and tools to help CEOs of mid to large-sized companies grow and optimize their businesses. Now, let's get started with the show. Welcome, everybody, to the CEO Project Podcast. My name is Jim Schlexer. I am your host. Welcome back. Hey, today we've got a really interesting guest. Now, you all know, I think if you listened to us for a while, that we are fans of the theory of constraints, which is a general systems theory and identifies the thing that's stopping a system from performing. But a related and equally important theory, goes way back to an Italian economist, is the Pareto Principle. So today, my guest is sort of renowned for his work in that space, funny enough. So it'll be an interesting conversation. Perry Marshall is one of the most expensive business strategists in the world. He's endorsed by Forbes and Inc. magazines, authored 10 books. At London's Royal Society, he announced the world's largest science research challenge, the $10 million Evolution 2.0 prize. His reinvention of the Pareto Principle is published on Harvard Business Review, and his Google book laid the foundations for the $400 billion digital advertising industry. I'm not sure why he's talking to me, but anyway, he has a degree in engineering and lives with his family in Chicago. Perry, welcome.
Good to be here. Thank you.
Quite a resume you got there.
CEOs need to understand 80-20. In fact, if you don't understand 80-20, you shouldn't be a CEO at all.
Yeah.
And
I agree with that.
And most people think they understand 80-20 and they don't.
Yeah.
So not to insult anybody, but we're going to go a little deeper than most people used to.
We're going to illuminate this just a little bit. You know, when we talk to CEOs, I'd say, you know, when we talk about theory of constraints, Goldrat's book and the whole general systems theory there, I'd say half of them actually know what their point of constraint is. So, and then of that half, only half actually spend a lot of their time at the point of constraint. So we would say if you know your point of constraint and you actually spend time on it, you're in the top quarter of all CEOs before we even get started, right? So tell us, like, what do people miss about let's go back all the way back to the beginning. Was the evolution of the Pareto Principle. For those that don't know, you probably all took economics, but you may have been asleep at this class. So tell us where Pareto came from.
Well, Vilfredo Pareto was an Italian economist who figured out that when he studied all the different countries, it didn't even seem to matter which political system and what economic system. It just always turned out that 20% of the people own 80% of the real estate, and the other 80% of the people only own 20% of the real estate, which means the difference between the haves and have-nots is 16-1. It's not 4-1, it's 16-1.
Yep.
There's a few people that have a lot, and there's a lot of people that have a little. And so that became known as the Pareto Principle. And probably most people have heard that much. And if you're in marketing circles, you've probably heard a lot of people say that 80% of your revenue comes from 20% of your customers. So I think most people know that too. But I remember the first time somebody told me that, it was in a book. I was in my 20s and I was a marketing manager at a company. I was like, is that right? And I printed out a QuickBooks report. And I took the customers from top to bottom. And sure enough, by the time I was 20% of the way down through the pages, that was 80% of the money.
Yeah.
And then I didn't do anything about it. I thought, well, that's kind of interesting. And I didn't really connect the dots to what does this actually mean? Well, it meant a lot of things. It meant that, like, we had this customer in Des Moines that they would like order just a few $1,000s of stuff every year, which wasn't very much. And the engineer would always try to beat me up about, you know, you guys don't have this feature, you don't have that feature. And, you know, if you don't add these features, I'm going to switch to your competitor. And I would get my shorts all twisted up about that. And I didn't realize that they're in almost all companies, like 99.5% of the time, there are customers where you are taping dollar bills to every box that goes out. You are losing money by servicing that business, and you are in no moral obligation. There's no law of the universe that says you're supposed to sell to these people or that you can't send them to a competitor. So
By the way, I used to analyze this, right? So 20% of your clients cause 80% of your pain in the butt too, right? It's
yes,
that.
yes, they do.
And when we would analyze it and we figure out we're losing money on them, and the marketing guys like, or sales guys are like, we got to keep this client. I'm like, I'm tell you what, I'm going to send each of them $20 a month not to buy from us,
Yeah.
and I'll be money ahead.
Yes, that's absolutely right. And so when the penny dropped was when I read Richard Koch's originally 80/20 book, and he made a comment. He just a throwaway comment on page 14. He said, 80/20 has a lot to do with chaos theory.
Hmm.
Well, I'm a geek and I happen to have a couple of books about fractals and chaos, which sounds like a really nerdy subject. It's incredibly important. And I was like, wait a minute. Because in chaos theory, you have really simple patterns that like create weather, they create hurricanes. Like you take a really simple set of rules and a butterfly wing flaps, and there's a hurricane 6 months
Yeah.
later.
Yeah.
And it was like, wait a minute. If what he said is true, then 80/20 is like one of the most fundamental laws of cause and effect. It's not just this thing that gets mentioned in a business class sometime when I was a sophomore. No, this is like super important. It also means there's an 80/20 inside every 80/20 inside every
Mhm.
80/20. Is that true? And
Sure.
I jumped up from the coffee shop and I drove home. And at this point in my life, I was a year and a half into, I had started a new business. I had a consulting company. Everybody on this listening has probably knows what it was like at month 18
Yep.
after you started a new business. I'm laying on the floor in the living room and got all these pieces of paper, all these reports. I got a calculator. I'm like, oh my word, this is everywhere. I never saw it before. Now I can't unsee it.
Yep.
I can never look out the window and not see 80/20. Whoa. I mean, my brain just melted. And the following Monday, I reached out to my biggest client and I explained 80/20. And I said, we are going to do an 80/20 analysis of all the catalogs you're sending out and the customers. Now, this was a very interesting client because they were running what in the early 2000s you would sort of kind of call a mail order business,
Hmm.
but they sold engineering devices
Hmm.
that are used in factories. So their customers were B2B, further complicated by the fact that many of their customers had multiple locations and the purchase order could originate from Oregon and it could ship to Kentucky and the engineers in Minnesota, and connecting the dots was extremely difficult. But we started using 80/20 to figure out the cause and effect patterns, that there are mailing lists that are producing 16 times more than these other mailing lists, and you don't know it. There are certain customers that are producing 16 times more, and you didn't know it. And the stuff we did started working. That was the first client where I started getting the quarterly bonus checks from, I got my retainer, but if we hit certain things, and I'm like 32 years old and I'm, honey, we got a $15,000 bonus check from my client. Wife happy.
Yeah.
And so the the huge insight was that there's an 80/20 inside every 80/20. So not only do 20% of your customers produce 80% of your revenue, 20% of the 20% produce 80% of the 80%, and 20% of the
Yep.
20% of the 20% produce 80% of the 80% of the 80%. This is not academic.
Yeah. No, it's
This
recursive. I totally get that.
this is so that means 50% of your revenue will come from 1% of your customers if you're running your business correctly.
Yep.
And 30% of your revenue will come from 0.2% of your
Yeah.
customers.
So, but Perry, just let's go to the next step. Got it. Point made, right?
Yep.
And then what, right? In other words, you say, should I ignore or be passive any by 80% that's not really generating that much revenue and focus all my attention on the 20%? Because I'm gonna tell you that when people go down that chain of logic, they get
Mhm.
freaked out because they go, well, look at the revenue I'm gonna lose and I'm gonna shrink. And that's not good. So what do we do then? Yes, we've analyzed it. Yes, we figured out
Yeah.
the 20 people that are all our revenue. What do we do with that information?
So, so the next step is what I call the 21-20 rule.
Okay.
And that says that 120% of your profit came from,
Yes, because you're losing money on all the rest. Yes.
yeah,
Yeah.
120% of your profit came from 20% of your customers.
Yeah.
60% of your customers, you just broke even and kept the lights on, which is fine.
Yep. There's something to overhead coverage a little bit. Not the best argument, but you know.
But the bottom 20% takes you from the 120% you would have made down to the 100% that you actually made because it
Yeah.
just sucks. And this is true virtually all the time.
Oh, I'm sure everybody listening is thinking through their customer list and go, this one, that one, that one, that one. They're all on the naughty list, right?
And it's not just customers. It's suppliers, it's support tickets, it's product defects, it's vendors, it's
Employees.
recurring subscriptions on your credit card. It's everything, any dimension. So
Yep.
so I'm very well known in marketing for being the guy that wrote the book on Google Ads.
Okay.
Well, the way back in 2003 when I first wrote that book, what I realized was this is really just an 80-20 exercise. And in a Google account, you've got a lot of columns. You've got impressions and clicks and ads and conversions and all kinds of stuff. You go through, you don't just 80-20 one thing. You go from one column to the next, and you go, so what's the 80-20 of this column? What's the 80-20 of this column? And you kind of look at the whole picture and you understand there's like a series of bright spots that my profit and my forward progress is coming from like this constellation of keywords, ads, employees, paid phone reps, whatever, and then there are these red spots where you're
Yeah.
bleeding, and it's similar, and you pour as much kerosene on the good stuff as you possibly can, and you ruthlessly cut out the bad stuff. It's not so much the stuff in the middle, but one of the daunting things about digital advertising, especially when it was new, was I could spend all week trying to optimize stuff. I could do this forever, but I would be polishing turds most of the time because most of it does not matter. So, what do you optimize? And so, in an information overload where everybody's got emails and everybody's got Instagram and everybody's got text messages and spam and all the rest, it it takes a really concerted focus to say only 5% of this really matters.
Right. No, I think it's a brave decision to then change my focus and all that activity I had goes away.
And it will require courage. The word brave that you said, that's exactly right. And really, your ability to do this has less to do with your ability to analyze
Hmm.
and much more to do with your ability to have a hard conversation. I'm going through that with my company right now. I need to make some major changes for a bunch of reasons that we don't need to go into. Well, the difficulty of changing a company is having a conversation with somebody that's been with you a long time. You're like, I love you, you love me, we're a happy family, but we are growing apart in where the business is going, and this just does not make sense anymore. Nobody wants to have that
Yeah.
conversation. Nobody wants to rock the boat.
Yeah. So how do you, I mean, some of the techniques I've seen for this is price them up or price them out. So you go to your bottom 25, 30% and you go, hey, we've analyzed the cost to serve your business. We're going to double your price.
Yep.
They go, you can't do that. I'm going to leave. You go, we're going to miss you.
Yeah.
Right?
Right. Right.
It's the chicken way of not having a hard conversation, but it's
Yeah.
all I've
And
done.
darn near half the time they'll just pay double the price because
Right.
they can't get it anywhere else. And it's not like the day that you were born and the doctor slapped you on the butt. It was your destiny or your obligation to sell them that computer card for $199 when it cost you $225 to make it.
Yep. Yep. Interesting. Um, what about talent? Have you applied this to people, talent, the impact they have on the business as well?
Yes, it
So,
applies not only to people, but the individual talents of individual people. So, in any organization, 5% of the people do two-thirds of the productivity.
boy, if we could
5%.
just figure out who they are, we'll fire everybody else and save a lot of money.
Well, that's that's somewhat true. And and then I think the biggest insight about talent is that when a person has a superpower, like let's say they're a really good writer, sending them to even a really good writer, sending a really good writer to a writing class is the best investment of
Mm,
money because getting an excellent writer to superb is a hugely disproportional outcome if they're a copywriter or something like that, or send a really good accountant to a turbo gee whiz accounting class that makes them even more amazing than they were before.
hmm.
Whereas most people are trying to shore up their weaknesses and
Oh, yeah, which by the way is complete BS. Just double down on your strengths every time, and just going back to the talent thing, we've seen this in software programmers. Like the best coders, they're not just 10 or 20 or 30% better. They're 10 times better.
yes, they are,
The
or
best
100.
sale, the best salespeople, like your top 5% of your salespeople are bringing in half your business um, on that kind of order. And that's typical, right? And you go, boy, I wish if I could. The problem is if they're superhuman and they're special in the way you indicated, how do I find them and get them to come and work for me? That's always the trick.
Well, there's that, and they're usually prima donnas and they
Well,
require special, it's like, well, Miles Davis didn't show up on Tuesday afternoon when we were going to record, and where was Miles? Or they, they want a trailer behind with a poodle groomer, and and you have to understand this just comes with the territory with
yeah,
really extraordinary people.
yeah.
It's not like you made some kind of mistake. And yeah, with salespeople, they might come with terrible problems. They might be an alcoholic, or they might have
Never.
this tendency to say things to people that are very offensive or
I,
whatever.
I've had the like, don't fill out expense reports for 7 months. Like, oh, by the way, here's 7 months expense reports. So,
Yeah, that's why you hire them an assistant to follow them and have the shoebox full of receipts. And so this is one of the pathological things about managers and CEOs is they get that extraordinary salesperson who they could sell anything to anybody. They have a drinking problem and they're terrible with their receipts. And they harangue and harass this person about their receipts and their expense reports or their projections or whatever. When, dude, just hire some check for 25 bucks an hour to follow this guy around and clean up his messes and stop harassing him. Like just get him in front of customers selling that. Like that's it. And buy him a vacation to Tahiti and just be happy, okay? And
Jesus.
and 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 don't resent the fact that last month he made 3 times more money than the CEO. Yeah, that's because he spent 3 months, no, 3 years, sorry, 3 years working on a deal and it just landed. And you certainly don't fire him. Like when I was a sales manager, I told my manufacturer's reps, I will never fire you for being too successful.
Yeah, I
And
remember.
and they knew I meant it because I would tell manufacturers rep stories. I was like, no, like I know you hate it. You spent 18 months on this thing. The first month comes in and then they cut you and they replace you with a factory guy. I will not do that.
Mm,
You don't have to look over your shoulder behind me. I don't, you can make more money than me and that's fine. I think that's a big thing with salespeople right there.
interesting. I remember the first time, this is years ago, my top sales guy made over 100,000 bucks, and I at that time wasn't quite making 100 grand. And the accountants were like, "Well, he's making more money than you. You must feel terrible about that." I'm like, "No, that dude brought in half my revenue. I'm thrilled to pay him a big check. I hope he does it again." So now, when people consistently execute the 80/20, what happens? What are the transformations that occur in your business, right? We think about our marketing that way. We think about our talent that way. We think about our clients, our suppliers, our how does the business change? What does it end up looking like?
It becomes much more Zen-like and everybody is not frenetically paddling as hard as they can. My friend Richard Koch is a billionaire, and he wrote a great book on 80/20. And one of the things he says in several of his books is if a business is a star business and it's well run and they're running it by 80/20, when you walk in the door, you do not get the sense that there is a flurry of commotion and everybody's running around. There's a certain amount of laid back serenity that character it's a little weird to people that aren't 80/20. It is
Mm.
really easy to equate effort with virtue.
No doubt. Effort and productivity, activity and productivity is the like that's. I'm
They're
busy. I'm busy. I don't care if you're busy. What was your outcome?
they're completely different. And one of the things that happens, and I have a lot of clients who've had this experience, is they're like, hey, my life is not on fire and I'm not running around with a fire extinguisher all the time and the revenue is good and sales are coming in. Oh my goodness, what am I supposed to do with myself?
Yeah.
And it's a weird, like it sounds great, but when you're actually in it, like one of my clients, his name is Mark McShirley, he owns a roofing company. He started oil painting. And he said, if I don't have a creative outlet to exercise my creative energy, I will point my creative energy to rearranging my company that's already running like a well-oiled machine, and I'll just screw it up.
Yeah, yeah. We joke around and go, what do firefighters do when there aren't any fires? They become arsonists. So they can set a fire and go put it out, right? It's crazy.
Yes,
It
yes.
is a bit of an ego thing, particularly as a CEO, when you go, it's running. In fact, we literally had this conversation with one of our members not that long ago. He says, things are running great. I'm making money. I'm growing. I got great people. I don't quite know what to do with myself. And our answer is, I like oil painting was not the answer we came up with, but like figure out what's next. Spend time thinking about the future, spend time innovating the business model, make it even better than it is already, and do a little challenger, king of the hill thing and see who, if you can get a better model than you have.
Or find a cause that you really care about, or find recreational activities that are really, really engaging. I think that if you love your work, then one of your challenges when you go on vacation is having a vacation that's as interesting as your work.
Mm,
And for a lot of people, reading Danielle Steele novels on the beach is not very interesting. And, maybe they need to go hiking in Antarctica or something.
right.
Uh, I'm completely serious. Like
No,
if
I hear you. I totally hear you. Work is more interesting than leisure. Then you're going to work while you're on your leisure.
Right. And so you may need to upgrade your leisure to something more interesting. You may need to upgrade your social circles to more engaging people that are harder to find. And I mean, that's what country clubs are for. Literal country clubs and all of the other, they're for all practical purposes, country mastermind groups. And it's you, the higher you climb, the harder you have to work to find interesting people to spend your time with.
Yep.
And you know you're in the right room when the conversation in that room was so interesting that, oh, like running the P's and Q's of the business didn't even occur to me.
Hmm. Yep. Interesting. Well, I'd like we do CEO peer groups. We like to think we curate groups like that you walk in and go, ooh, I'm gonna have to bring my A game just to stay up with this group of people. And,
Yes,
and that's a good group if you get there.
yes.
So they're hard to create though, because he's bringing that caliber of people together is difficult. Um,
It's hurting cats, and
yeah,
and
yeah,
and not very many people can do it.
yeah, yeah, no doubt. Welcome to my life. Can you apply this to your personal life? Speaking of life,
100%
give us a
because,
couple of examples of how that
well,
works.
80% of your personal satisfaction and connection is from 20% of your friends,
Mm,
and 5% of your relationships are two-thirds of your satisfaction. And so, like, who cares about your 150 Facebook friends? What about the people that you spend a lot of time with every day? And are you spending time with the people that you want to spend it with?
mm,
And are you having meals and celebration? And my friend John McGee says that there ought to be an element of your off time that's a little bit irrational and not justifiable,
mm.
like almost like, well, what's the square root of a negative number? There should be parts of what you're doing that don't really make sense. Like, in my opinion, karaoke doesn't really make any sense, but some people really, really, really love
Yeah,
it. Well,
yeah. No,
if you love karaoke, then go sing karaoke.
God love you. Yeah, you're feeling a bit like Marie Kondo here. If it doesn't give you joy, then you should get it out of your life. She does it for things, right? Like simplifying your life, reducing the stuff in your life. And that's the question. Does this give me joy? Not really. Get rid of it and
Yeah.
narrow your
So,
life down to what gives you joy. But just on the personal connection thing, I think people struggle with that. I tell, particularly men, I say male adult friendship is really hard.
okay. So
Women are
let's,
way better at this than we are.
yes. So let's take men. Let's take men who run internet things,
Yep.
which were oftentimes your next door neighbor wouldn't even understand what you do if you tried to explain it to him.
Right.
And then let's add COVID. So I think that most male entrepreneurs are extremely lonely and extremely isolated and don't even know it. And that's why they're itchy. It's why they're OCD. It might be why they got themselves into an emotional affair, or some kind of a thing like that. It might be why they keep bouncing from one girlfriend to another to another. I think, like, I keep hearing, I have heard this probably 10 different places, that very, very traditional liturgical churches have membership that's just skyrocketing, especially from Gen Z.
Oh, wow.
There have been surveys that have been coming out lately. I think it's because exactly what you're saying. So, and it's
Yeah.
men who are isolated. Like, I can't keep sitting in my mother's basement eating Doritos on a video game, or scrolling, or swiping, and like, this is not making me happy. And they want structure, and they want some form of parenting in their life, if you will, and some direction and some leadership and some sense of things that don't constantly change every nanosecond.
Yeah. Well, and religion doesn't, so place to be.
Yeah.
Why don't we end on this since you brought up fun? What irrational thing do you do for fun?
I build stereo equipment. I
Oh, You're an electrical engineer, dude. That makes complete sense.
I won first place out of 58 entries at the International Speaker Design Competition 2 years ago. So that is my claim to fame.
Guys, put it on the gravestone. Well, Perry, this was just a ton of fun and really thought-provoking and interesting. So I appreciate your time. If somebody wanted to engage you to help them on that journey, what's the best way to get a hold of you?
Go to perrymarshall.com and subscribe to our Perry Marshall Minute, which will make you think every day for 1 minute.
That's just 50% more than I normally think. So perfect. Awesome. Perry, thanks for coming. We really appreciate it.
This has been great. You asked great questions. Thank you for your time today.
Well, thank you. And for all of you joining us, thanks for coming, and we'll see you next time on the CEO Project Podcast. Thanks for listening to the CEO Project Podcast. We'll see you next time. Be sure to subscribe to get all the future episodes and check out our website, www.theceoproject.com.